Hey everyone, welcome to the SIFTD Video Game Fantasy Draft for 2021. I'm Shane Satterfield, the founder of SIFTD and the maniac who came up with this idea many, many years ago.
Yeah, home of the original video game fantasy.
We are the first people to ever do a video game fantasy draft. It has become kind of a thing in the industry, although Matt, I will say this year I haven't seen like hardly any of it.
No,
last year was
nobody knows what the heck. We're working blind this year in a way that I don't think we have before.
Yeah. Last year, everybody did it. Yeah. I mean, last year, literally almost every outlet did a fantasy draft. And I was flattered. I was like, wow, that's awesome. It's cool to like come up with something that everybody adopts.
But also, Matt, I think it's more fun if everybody's in a room.
Yeah, it makes a big difference for sure. Even doing this on Zoom is a little weird, I think. It's fun to be there and kind of play off of our picks and stuff like that. But anyway, we're doing ours. I don't know if everyone's going to follow suit and do theirs. I have a feeling, Matt, that maybe they didn't get a big return on their investment in views.
That could be.
Because we don't do this for views. We do this as like a community building thing. And the reason that is because it's not just about what Matt and I are about to do. We also create a fantasy league for all of you. And it's called the SIFTD Fantasy Challenge. And just like Matt and I are about to do, you pick 10 games. And then at the end of the year, you get their Metacritic scores. And then the highest aggregate score wins. Now, the fantasy challenge is a little different because when you pick your 10 games there, the games are weighted. So the first game that you pick should be the game that you think is going to get the highest review score because you get a bigger multiplier for that first pick, and then it goes down with every successive pick. However, Matt and I, we just do it straight up. Every pick is weighted the same. And how it works is Matt and I will take turns picking games until both of us have a team of 10 games. And then he and I will pick 2 alternates. And the reason we're picking alternates is because the way this works is if a game is delayed out of the year, you get a 0 for that game. And the first couple of years, we didn't really have alternates and we just got burned. And it basically ended up becoming a contest of who can guess which games are coming out and who can't. And that wasn't as fun. So we do have 2 alternates.
Also, I was really good at it.
Yeah, you were. Yeah. And just so you guys know, the way the records are right now. So I'm 3-3 overall. I beat Marcus Beer the first year. And then Matt has won 3 since then, and I've won 2. So I'm 3-3 overall. Matt's 3-2. So I'm trying to catch Matt. I'm trying to even it up this year. But anyway, we take turns picking games. We have 10, and then we get 2 alternates, and that's our team for the year. And then you sit back and just watch the review scores roll in for the games and cheer your team on. Now, I will say this. The SIFTD Fantasy Challenge is live right now at siftd.net. It is up on the homepage. I would hope you guys won't leave and go pick your teams while the stream's happening. And I think it would be smart if you don't, because I think the discussions that Matt and I are about to have about a lot of games will help you when you go to make your picks. We do give prizes to the winner. Last year's winner was Polak. If you are a patron or a subscriber to SIFTD, and I'll be honest with you, if you are also a member of ours on YouTube, if you're subscribing on YouTube, we'll include you as well. And you win, you get 2 free games of your choice. Now you have to be a registered user of SIFTD no matter what. But if you're just a basic user, you can still win, but you only win 1 game if you actually win the challenge. So again, that's live right now at siftd.net. Once we get done with this show, I'll put a link up in the header of the site as well for easy access. And then bookmark that page because that'll be your link to keep going back and checking, because the SIFTD Fantasy Challenge, the scores update in real time and they're dynamic. So as soon as reviews start coming out for a game, you can go to that page and you can see how it's affected your standing. Last year, we had like 4 times as many people as we've ever had before. I'm hoping we can do that again this year. Spread the word around, share the link with your friends. The more the merrier and the more fun it is. So anyway, SIFTD Fantasy Challenge for 2021 is up, but please wait until Matt and I pick our teams before you go over there and do it. So the way it works is Matt is going to pick first this year. I picked first last year. We flipped a coin initially, and since then we've just taken turns picking first. I'll say this, Matt. I did not feel as bad about you getting first pick this year as most years. Mm-hmm. Because most years it seems like there's that one game that I really want at number 1. But this year there were a couple that would have been cool kind of getting there. So
yeah, I admit that this pick was to keep you away from it.
Okay.
It probably wouldn't have been my first pick in a non-competitive situation, but I felt like it's going to score high enough that I wanted you not to have it.
Well, I will say this: if you hadn't picked it, I would have. So you made the right call there. It was going to be my first pick, and so Matt, with the first pick of the Sifted Video Game Fantasy League Draft of 2021, you select
Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
Yeah, that I would have picked it too. As I said earlier, a big function of this is what is the game going to come out or not? In fact, it may be the most important thing you consider when you're picking your video game fantasy team. Because if you get a 0, you're done. I got a 0 in the fantasy challenge last year for Halo Infinite, and I finished 25th. I was the top finisher with only 9 games, and I still only finished 25th. So you have to have all your games if you want to win. This, to me, of all the big games that are currently scheduled to come out this year, is the surest bet for it coming out this year. And I also just believe it's going to be flipping amazing.
I do have one sure bet coming up.
Okay.
a few picks later, but in terms of stuff that isn't immediate, like this is coming before the halfway point of the year, I think.
Yep.
And Insomniac always delivers pretty close to release window, so it feels like a very safe pick, both in terms of it existing on the shelves, and if this thing doesn't get it in the 90s, I will be very disappointed and upset, because
I would be very shocked.
Yeah, it looks like this is going to be one of the flagship PS5 titles that everything else gets compared to for a couple of years.
Agreed. It's also doing stuff that could not have been done on the PlayStation 4. It is a next-gen game in every sense of the word. It is not being released for a PlayStation 4. It is built in 4K from the ground up. The stuff that it's doing with like the world warping, that's only because of the SSD. You couldn't do that on an old mechanical drive. So I would have picked Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart if you didn't. So you made the right call there. You picked the right game, Mr. Kyle. Okay, it's time for me to share my first overall pick. And I just want to say that I took things riskier this year. And I think a little bit of it was intentional, but I also think from my perspective, a little bit of it was just out of necessity, because this is a weird year. I felt like when we started doing this draft, I got to my third pick and I was like, crap, what do I do now? And I had to start thinking really hard. This is the hardest draft I've done. Matt, you said that's not the case for you. You felt like you had a bunch of games locked and loaded, ready to pick more.
And to be fair, like a lot of the games that I had on my list, not necessarily all the ones I picked, because there were some that left over at the end, because I always get more than 10 in case you pick stuff that I can't. I always want extra stuff left. I feel like some of my picks might end up being in the 70s. On Metacritic, but is better than not.
It's better than a 0.
So that was sort of where I went.
That's where I was. I'm looking for 7s instead of 8s this year.
There are only 2 games on my list that I feel like might slip out of this year, and one of them is a nice to have, and the other one is I had to have just in case. So everything else, I feel pretty confident about 2021 release.
I have more games than that, Matt.
You got some picks. You're rolling the dice way.
Well, my very first pick is risky. And
it is.
And my first pick in the 2021 Sifted Video Game Fantasy League Draft is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. Very, very risky. Zelda games are almost always delayed. They haven't really given us a solid release date for this game in the first place, which makes it even a little more dicey. But Matt, I'll just be honest with you. I'm hanging my hat on 2 things. The first thing is that the game has been in development for 4 years and they already had the engine. And my guess is they already had pretty big chunks of the sequel built, maybe to use for DLC, but if not, to then maybe incorporate into the sequel.
Certainly, a lot of the map was already there for them.
Yep, and the character models and just a lot of the legwork has been handled already. So that's
I think the bulk of this game development process was fleshing out the dungeon stuff, but also trying to figure out how you make a co-op Zelda game. With Link and Zelda, and I know that's not confirmed, but I will bet you cash money this is a 2-player co-op game.
Well, I think it's a pretty much certain that you're going to spend a good bit of time playing as Princess Zelda at the very least. And then the other thing that convinced me to draft it first overall is that this year is the 35th anniversary of Zelda.
The anniversary is really the clincher for me. I mean, I think there is a pretty good chance this doesn't come out this year, but I really think they want it to.
It would be a huge mistake
because of that anniversary. The anniversary makes it so tempting to get this out as their big holiday release.
The other part of it is we just saw what Nintendo did for the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers. Mm-hmm. It was this huge year-long blowout of games. Now, it did not release a new 3D Mario. They released a bunch of old 3D Marios, and I would be very disappointed if they released remasters of old Zelda games instead of Breath of the Wild 2 this year. But the timing is right. Nintendo would be dumb to not get this game out for the 35th anniversary.
But they will wait if it's not done.
They will, I know. And that's why it's really risky. I think
there will be. I think you will get, Switch ports of the HD Wind Waker and Twilight Princess this year. You'll probably get something else. Maybe that long-awaited Skyward Sword HD, probably. And if they need to push this to next year, assuming it's planned for this year, and just release all those HD versions of the old games, they can get away with it.
Yeah.
But I hope we're playing this fall.
To me, the
right time to do it.
Yeah. To me, the upside of this game being on my team was worth the risk, because
if it does come out, this is probably going to be the highest scoring game of the year.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, even with my first pick, as I started looking down the list, I was like, I don't see too many other games I'm pretty confident will get a 9 or higher that I am any more certain that is going to come out this year than Breath of the Wild 2. I'll just be honest. Like, everything that was left, I was like, well, I could see that not making it too. So as I started going down, and I was like, man, now this game's like a 7.8. And I'm like, well, no, I got to go for Zelda. So The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is my first pick in the 2021 draft. Now back to Matt for his second pick.
Second pick is Horizon Forbidden West.
And this was a game I was looking at, Matt, and it's like it's scheduled for the end of the year. Like, it could very easily could get delayed to February.
Yeah, this is one of my two that I think is a potential to slip. The other one came out in February or March, as I recall. So it could fall. But I think this is, if all goes well, Sony's big holiday release. In the same way as obviously it is not in the same way as Ratchet, because Ratchet is built for PS5. This is going to have a PS4 version. It's not the same deal. It's a little more Miles Morales-esque.
Yep.
But I don't, the first one rated really well. It was my favorite game of that year. I can't see this being anything more other than an improvement. So I definitely wanted it on there, and I knew you'd have your eye on it. I actually was half expecting you to pick it first.
Yep. Well, I waffled between that and Zelda. I honestly, Matt, I think Zelda is more likely to come out this year. That was really my determinant. Although
I do not agree with that.
Really?
But I would give them about even odds with each other.
I don't know. That anniversary for Zelda really kind of pushes me in that direction, to be honest with you.
I think they're going to try, but that's the thing.
They're more incentivized to get it out this year, I think.
But I also think that Sony doesn't have a lot else. But we have seen that Sony is willing to put nothing out for Christmas and just ride on multi-platform stuff. So
we've kind of seen Nintendo do that too. So,
but in the same way that Breath of the Wild 2 is, it's been the right amount of time. It's going to be 4 years next month.
Yep.
Since Horizon 1 came out. It all adds up. Like there's no like compelling reason not to think that they aren't targeting this holiday season for this game and Breath of the Wild 2.
Well, I hope you're right, Matt. Because
we just don't know what'll happen between now and then.
Because I'll be honest with you, if I had to sacrifice losing our fantasy league to be able to play Horizon this year, I'll take it. I'll take losing the league to play Horizon in 2021. Again, I'm not going to repeat everything that you said. It's a great pick, but I think this season is just dicey, man. Like, I just don't feel confident about anything, and I think that started to reflect my picks after a while. I was like, this is all a crapshoot, so I might as well just aim high with my crap shooting. And that's what I did.
I only feel the need to crapshoot 2 games because that's how many alternates we have. So I did that.
I went above and beyond, Kyle.
Yep.
So anyway, there's Matt's second pick, Horizon Forbidden West. All of us have our fingers crossed that this game makes it out for 2021. It's time for my second pick. And this is where I just started to break down a little bit. Matt, I think this pick took me, like 8 minutes to make?
Took a while. I mean, I was playing.
So you weren't noticing the time.
I was playing Doom while you were doing this. So I'd see the thing pop up and be like, all right, and I'd type in my next one and just go back to Doom. I tend to have my list pretty much done before we do these. And then I'll just adjust on the fly if you pick something that I wanted.
Yep. Well, after I share what my pick is, I'll share what I texted to Matt when I made the pick. Mm-hmm. And my pick is Resident Evil Village. And as I said in Game Face 243, we cannot show you this game. We're not allowed to put footage of the game in the show because we'll get copyright strikes. So you just got to trust me on this one that I'm very excited about it. Again, I feel like it's stepping in the same puddle that Resident Evil 4 did. It's more of a rural setting. It's a little more mystical and based upon supernatural stuff instead of the T-virus, although I'm sure at the end it'll end up being some kind of a virus that caused everything. But that's what I liked about Resident Evil 4. It wasn't like every cinematic was like the T-virus, the V-virus, the virus, the virus, the virus. It was like, there are these crazy people trying to kill us. How can we survive? Mm-hmm. And that, I like that about RE7. And it looks to me like Village is going to have that same bent. So I am really excited for it. I am a big Resident Evil fan. I went back and looked at Resident Evil 7. Its Metacritic score ended up being like an 8.7. And again, as I was looking down this list, I was like, where are more 8.7s? I really can't find too many of them that I'm pretty certain are going to come out this year. This game does have pretty much a hard date, and it is earlier-ish in the year. Not an exact date, but they're like mid 2021. I'm pretty confident they'll get it out before the end of the year, and I'm really excited for it. So it was kind of a safe pick. And then to go to what I was saying earlier, when I made this pick, when I texted Matt, I said, RE Village, I guess. Because
this came a lot earlier than I thought it would.
But that's what I'm saying, because I started looking down. I'm like, I don't see any other game guaranteed to score an 8 points. Not that this one is either, obviously, but that's the comp.
It's got a track record.
Yeah, it's comp. So I didn't see any higher comps that I was really confident that the game was coming out this year. And you're right, I did pick it early, but I was afraid that you might go through the process and see the same stuff that I did and be like, oh, well, I guess I have to pick Resident Evil, and I would miss it. So
no, this one was actually pretty far in my mid list.
Okay,
you were pretty safe with this one.
Well, also with your next pick, I think if I had known how you felt about this next game, right, I definitely wouldn't have taken it. But knowing now, I can see why you made this pick, and that pick is
Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah,
which I am fairly
243. He just said is like one of the best RPGs he's played. Yeah, so
because I'm playing the early access of it periodically, and they're hitting it out of the park. I'm not saying go spend $60 on a game that won't be out for months yet to play early access necessarily, but I knew I was going to buy it when it came out just because I like Baldur's Gate D&D stuff. So I went ahead and did it, and I'm glad I did because I enjoyed the early access a lot and playing with the different character builds and all that. I will say this. I'm pretty sure this is going to be out this year. I think they'll make their October, November target. They said when it came out in early access, they had about a year left, and I think that'll hold. They've been updating it pretty regularly.
Oh, it's going to make it. I have no doubts. Yeah.
And I will say this. This was not one of my first or second pick because I knew you weren't going to go for it.
I mean, you could have taken this a lot later.
Probably could have, but I definitely wanted to get it locked in because I think this game's going to be like a 95.
Wow.
I think this might if
get that in the third slot.
If there's a game that has a shot at competing with Zelda for top reviewed game of the year, it's this one.
Wow. Those are some big words coming from you, Matt.
This is Larian firing on all cylinders, even just in Act 1 with this even as buggy and early access as it is, you can see what this thing's going to be, and it's going to be amazing. I'm very excited. Look, if this game beats me, that's okay. I am very excited to hear that about Baldur's Gate 3 because my expectations for it were, I'll be honest with you, I may not have even drafted it. So I am very happy to hear, especially coming from you, that you are enjoying Baldur's Gate 3 that much. I mean, I expected to be pretty good just coming off of the Divinity Original Sin games, but like Larian is just stepping it up. I mean, they are improving the pen and paper game in the tweaks they're making to the rules in this version. Wow. It's so much fun to play. All the different characters feel like themselves, like they capture what it's like to play the characters in a tabletop game, but they also still make it fun as a video game. You can approach the conversations very differently and relate to the different like party characters different. Like it's all there, and there's a lot of interaction with the elements and sort of playing with the environment, like height, like giving advantage for projectile attacks. Like it's all there. The systems are all there for you to play around with and experiment with, and it works really well. And it'll only continue to work even better as they polish it up and get the last. And it's a huge game already, and you don't even get to Baldur's Gate.
Wow.
In Act 1 of the Act 1 pretty much ends with you finally getting to Baldur's Gate, and like that city is going to be crazy when they finally get it done for the final release. It's the most excited I've been about a Western like kind of like point and click RPG in forever. It's really exciting.
Great to hear, man. That is good flipping news. And then my next pick, this is where I looked at Zelda and I was like, oh crap, maybe I've just completely ruined my chances at winning this. I'm going to go a little bit safer from here on out. And I didn't. But with this pick, I did. And my pick is Monster Hunter Rise. I just came off playing the demo on Switch. I think it's still up if you guys want to check it out. It is a pretty beefy demo. There are 2 different hunts you can go on. And then there are 2 kind of single player training missions you can play through if you want to give it a spin for yourself. And it's not that I was even all that impressed with it, to be honest with you. I am not a gigantic Monster Hunter fan. I've got into a couple of them. I played Try way too much. But once I played that, I was like, I kind of get it. I'll wait and see if like a new one comes out that actually kind of breaks the mold. Well, then Monster Hunter World came out and it was pretty much just Try, but at 1080p. And I played it and I enjoyed it for a while, but I didn't stick with it. But then I played this demo, and what I came away with playing this demo is that it's just as good as Monster Hunter World. In fact, I think Monster Hunter fans will probably say it's a little better because it actually brings a couple new features into the franchise that haven't been there before, like basically being able to use a grapple hook, being able to use enemies as mounts. That stuff may not seem like a big deal to you, but when you grind away at Monster Hunter, that little stuff ends up making a big difference. And then all the rest of it is just the same stuff that you got in World. It's just as big. It's just as sprawling. It will last just as long. There's going to be a long DLC trail for this game, just like there was for World. Now, obviously, it doesn't look quite as good as Monster Hunter World, but it looks freaking amazing for a Switch game. That was another thing for a third-party Switch game, especially. I was really impressed with the visuals in this game. Monster Hunter World is sitting at like a 9, but Matt, I think when I actually had it in our draft when it came out, I think when it came out, it was actually higher than that, and then over time it dropped down. So I think the score I got credited for was like a 9.1 or 9.2, but now it's slowly gone down to a 9. Still, for me, with like, the 4th or 5th pick in a fantasy draft, if I think I can get around a 9 from that, I'll take it. And the fact that there's not much competition on Switch as well, that makes me think that maybe some of the publications that only tackle Nintendo stuff might give it a little bit of a bump as well. So I think it's a safe pick. I know it's coming out in like a month and a half. It has a hard release date. A demo's out there already. So Monster Hunter Rise was my pick in that slot.
Yeah, pretty safe, but I do think my only concern on this one in terms of having it on the fantasy team would be online plus Nintendo equals nervous.
Yeah, but I'll say this: I already tried it, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit on this one, like you cheated on Baldur's Gate, I guess, because I've actually played it.
Somewhat. I mean, I think you're at least like a solid 8.5 in the very worst case scenario here. So.
I would never say that, but I would say that I'm pretty confident.
Look, it's Monster Hunter. Like it's inexplicably popular. I can't stand these games.
I don't understand it either, Matt.
It's going to rate real high, whether it's good or not.
And there's going to be millions of people that play it. Yep. So it's just the way it is. And again, you guys will figure out real quick if you haven't watched one of these drafts before. This isn't about what Matt and I think are like going to be the best games. It's what we think are going to review the best. That's all that matters. The actual quality of the game doesn't matter.
Cyberpunk was still a pretty solid first pick for you last year, even with how it turned out and what we talked about earlier today.
Well, it also helps when the cutoff happens, right? So when we cut it off and we had to calculate the scores, its aggregate was still a 9.0. Now it's lower, and that happened with Monster Hunter World as well. It was higher whenever we did the calculation.
Right, that was a late in the year release. That's right.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, that's my pick. I feel pretty good about it. I definitely know it's coming out. And after some of my other picks, that puts my heart at ease. So what's your next pick, Matt?
My next pick is a safe one.
Is it?
Yeah, it's coming out next month. Far Cry 6. Yeah.
Why is there no pre-promotion for this game? We have two trailers for this game. One was a teaser and then the full version of the teaser.
Well, and then like there's the trailer with Giovanni, or not Giovanni Ribisi.
That's what I'm talking about.
There's a trailer with him, and then there's this what we're looking at right now is the opening credits to the game.
Right. Yeah.
By the guy who did the opening to Westworld.
Yeah.
And
that's all there is. We've not seen any gameplay,
nothing else.
anything.
No. But it's coming out in February.
I didn't even realize that it was February, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I really thought this game wouldn't come out this year. I thought it had a decent chance to not come out this year.
No,
but Ubisoft needs
coming
it
out this year.
Because also while we're doing this draft, and this is what you guys should do while you're doing live drafts or you're picking, like go and look at like what publishers are putting out. So I searched like Ubisoft games in 2021. And there was nothing there. It was like Roller Champions and Far Cry.
Like saying it got delayed, so I guess it's not next week.
Oh, okay.
Month. But it will come. I think it'll come out this year.
Well, look, if it was scheduled for February, then yeah, chances are really good that it'll make it before the end of the year. But I was under the impression that it was going to be dicey. So
it's supposed to be out February 18th originally.
Yeah. But what makes you think that this will review well, Matt? Because I looked at this game and the last one got like a 7.8 or something aggregate.
I think they will readjust. I think the setting is more compelling. I think the use of city areas is going to change up how it works.
Agreed. That's what makes it exciting for me. Yeah.
And I mean, there's still a lot of open wild areas, but there is a big like Havana.
There's an urban hub,
where you can do that. And there's going to be like some parkour stuff that is involved. Like so that's changing it up. Should be interesting. And also just like it's coming out.
Yeah.
Like at a certain point in these lists, it's like
that's where it gets.
I'm 100% sure this will come out this year.
I mean, I got to the point by my fifth pick. I was like, what is something I'm sure is coming out that I think is going to score above a 7? Like, that's where I got to very quickly this year in the draft. And I think, Matt, part of it is that this is the first draft we've done during a console transition. Mm-hmm. We didn't do it before. When Marcus and I did the first draft, the new consoles were out already. And there was a clean break then. Like there wasn't a lot of carryover from the PS3 to the PS4. Like it just didn't work that way like it does now, where you have like they're creating versions that need to run on 2 platforms, and maybe that makes the game get delayed. Like there's a lot of other factors you have to consider when you're in a console transition that you didn't before. Like a lot of the games that have been announced for these consoles, like I don't want to pick them because I'm just like, bro, you're like, yep, 2021, and that's all you tell me. Like. And if it's a new game where you don't know that it's been in development for a long time, it gets really dicey to make those picks. So this is what I was saying, why I thought this draft was so hard. I think the console transition made it much more difficult than it normally is in any other year. So anyway, I know I just said, I was surprised that Matt took Far Cry 6, but I'm guessing Matt was surprised when I made this next pick as well. And my next pick in the draft is God of War Ragnarok. I
wasn't surprised, but you just won't listen to me on this one.
Yeah, I won't. I definitely won't. This was another case where so what I was just saying, like this was the point where I was like, okay, I could pick God of War Ragnarok, which let's say it has a 50% chance of coming out this year. I think it's better than that, but you probably think it's 50 or less. That's probably going to get like a 9 to a 9.5, or I could pick some other game that I'll be happy if it gets a 7.5. And I honestly, Matt, at this point, I thought you were going to start realizing it too, and that you were going to pick God of War. That's why I took it here. I was like, oh man, I think I let it fall maybe too far already. I need to take it now because I think Matt may take it. Because I was just looking, and I think if you look at your next pick, maybe that makes sense. And I don't want to ruin it. I want to spoil the surprise of what your next pick is. But I mean, I don't know. We'll let everyone else decide when they see what your next pick is. But that was where my head was.
Right. I will bet cash money this game isn't coming out this year.
Wow.
I have 0% chance this game.
And you don't have any insider information.
I do not.
Okay.
I just do not believe for 1 second God of War comes out this year.
Okay. Well, the way I looked at it was, you know what, the risk reward, if it does come out, I have game of the year on my squad. And at that point, I hadn't run out of alternates yet. And I really thought you were going to pick it.
No, you could have picked this 10th, and you still would have gotten it.
Wow.
I would never have picked this game, ever.
It's been 4 years since the last one came out. Obviously, they've, just like with Zelda, they've done a lot of the heavy lifting on this game already, as far as the engine and the art and the assets and the setting and all that type of stuff. Character models, music. I mean, you could go on and on about a lot of the nuts and bolts of game development that was already taken care of by the first game. And the trailer says 2021. These games, to the best of
the demo said Cyberpunk's going to be good. So, like I said, like I just said before, skeptical eye at everything they show you.
Yeah, I know that, but I don't know. I mean, what else you got to go on other than how long it's had to be worked on and what they tell you? Unless you have insider information.
I don't have insider information, but I do have 41 years of following this industry, and God of War ain't coming out this year. So stay tuned for Shane's first alternate pick, because that's what's going to happen.
Well, I hope to God you're wrong. I hope to the God of War that you're wrong.
You'll be very good for your I mean, look, I don't think you have a bad first alternate pick.
And I'll say this too, like if I do get it, I will probably win the league. It will be hard for you to overcome a 9 to a 9.5 at that slot if I get it. So I went for the juggler with this pick.
But I think all three of my first three picks are 9+.
Yeah.
So if they all come out, you'll need God of War.
That's true. That could be. So anyway, I'm far more confident it's coming out this year than Matt. I also don't remember a God of War ever being delayed. Do you?
Yeah, I want to say God of War, the original, like the last one got pushed a couple months.
Was it?
If I remember right, yeah.
I don't remember, but the franchise isn't one that's synonymous with delays, I guess is what I'm getting.
No, I mean, Sony Santa Monica tends to run a pretty tight ship. But like, I just don't see it happening. Like, it's going to have to be up against Horizon almost in the same window. We'll see.
That would make for a great second Christmas for the PlayStation 5.
That would be a nice. I mean, I don't think they would step on each other's toes much if you put them a month apart.
Yeah, it would be like 1 October, 1 November, maybe something like that. Yeah,
like
give them enough
work.
time to finish it. Yep.
I just don't.
We'll see.
I just don't think so.
I'm just going to keep the fingers crossed because it could be the difference for me in this.
I mean, it says 2021 on that teaser, but all it was a logo. We haven't seen anything from this game.
Yeah, we haven't. Yeah, but Sony also, if you remember, like the way it does business now, that's how it goes. Yeah, it's like. It typically puts out a trailer and then you don't really get a ramp up until like 6 months before the game comes out. Provided there's an E3, you'll get something at E3. Somewhat. But otherwise.
And you're also like we're probably up in the same place, like you said, like it's the first one we've done during a console transition. Yep. And Sony may be transitioning to a different way of revealing these things.
It's possible.
Just to stop the long tail on as opposed to like The Last of Us Part 2, which I think we saw literally years before it came out.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see. I have no problem with you having that game on your team. I don't think it's going to do you any good.
Okay. And now for Matt's pick, which I mentioned earlier, that after I saw his pick, I felt like I had made the right decision with God of War Ragnarok. And your pick is
Psychonauts 2, which screwed me over last year,
which would have been my next pick, by the way. So
yeah, but I think seems pretty on target for coming out this year. I think it's going to rate pretty well. It's not going to God of War Ragnarok rate well, but it's going to rate pretty. I see this definitely in the mid 8s.
Yeah, my question is, do modern critics who are 20, 25, do they like 3D platformers?
They like Psychonauts.
Do they?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. They weren't even alive, some of them, when the last one came out.
Of course they were. If they're in their 20s.
They were like 8 or whatever.
They played that game when they were like 8, 9, 10, 12.
Yeah.
And it's prime nostalgia bait for them. And it's prime I like stuff that Double Fine makes for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be good, like great, actually. I think people like us will give it high scores. I don't know if the younger editors will.
They will. It's a solid concept, even if you don't know what the first game is.
Yeah, and a lot of it will depend on just how funny it is as well. Like how good is the writing? Because that was really kind of the secret sauce from the first game.
Yeah.
And that's a tangent or like an intangible. Like you don't know.
But the E3 demo in 2019 was like no time had passed at all. Like they nailed it. So
Yeah. I do have faith in this game, as I said, and I think I even said in our text message exchange that fuck, that was my next pick. So yeah, I'm looking at it right now. That was my next pick. Back to the drawing board. That's what I texted you last night after you made this pick. And then I think I then proceeded to spend 10 minutes on my next
this was your longest gap, if I remember
because
right.
this was really for me where it just broke down. It was
To be fair, I had your next pick on my list too. It was probably going to be either my next pick or the pick after that.
I think people will be surprised by this pick, though, to be perfectly honest with you. And after the draft was over, I'll say this, Matt, I kind of regretted it a little bit, and I'll explain.
Maybe I think for this far down the list, it's a pretty solid pick.
I'll explain why. So my next pick is Bravely Default 2. And some people watching this may be like, what the hell is Bravely Default 2? Bravely Default was a JRPG on the 3DS. Its Metacritic average is like an 8.7. And I'll be honest with you, I had already spent 10 minutes trying to pick my next game, and I came across Bravely Default 2, and I was like, oh, there's the pick. But as soon as the draft was over, I looked at my games. I was like, what games give me concern? And I saw Bravely Default 2. And so I went and I watched a trailer, and I totally realized that what I had forgotten was the game is basically still running on the same engine as its predecessor, the 3DS game. The game
they basically just up the res.
The game looks terrible.
I think it looks nice.
Really?
But I like the art style.
I like the art, but I don't like the character models at all.
There's no Monster Hunter Rise. But,
and from a technical perspective, it is bottom of the barrel on Switch, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think it'll get docked like a huge amount for its graphics.
I don't think so, but it does look like it started life as a 3DS game.
It does. And that was it probably did. And that is what gave me pause after I had made the pick. Do I think now that it'll get like an 8.7, 8.8? No. I think at this point I'll be happy with like an 8. But that's where I got to.
I think it'll be in the 8s.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't think graphics live or die on RPGs that much, unless you're talking about like a Final Fantasy like big production. Like reviewers know what Bravely Default's trying to be. I don't think it'll hurt it that much.
I hope not. But anyway, I did regret this pick a little bit, but this also is definitely coming out this year. Its release date is in March, I believe. So again, like I made the Zelda pick. I got cautious. I picked Monster Hunter Rise. Then I picked God of War Ragnarok, and I was like, oh God, I got to get concerned.
What have I done?
Exactly. And I was like, that was the other thing I started doing, Matt, was looking for games that I thought would score high that had a hard date in the first 6 months of the year. And this one has one. It has an exact date. There's already a demo for this out as well. I was like, it's definitely coming this year. I think it'll get above an 8. I'm making the pick, and that's what I did. So there you go. Bravely Default. It'll be interesting to see how many of you guys picked that game for your SIFTD Fantasy Challenge. I'm guessing not a lot, but we'll see. Next up for you, this is also a game that was on my radar, particularly after a couple games had been delayed over the last couple weeks and were kind of either dicey or not coming out this year. And that game is
Back for Blood.
Yeah.
Left 4 Dead 3, if we're being
pretty
honest.
much. Yeah.
This is obviously, a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead.
Yep.
And I don't have a huge amount of interest in it because I don't really play online stuff much anymore. But
shooters, for that matter.
Or shooters. Also, I played Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 probably 500 hours or more.
Dude, that game was huge at G4, the first Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, and much like Phantasy Star Online, it's just one of those things I played so much I never want to see it again. It's like when you eat so much chocolate and you just don't want to look at dessert for like a week.
Yeah.
I still look at, like, even watching the trailers for this game makes me feel like, oh, no, I don't want to do that again. Like, we played that game so much. It was
at G4, it was huge. I remember Jess, who now works at Sony Santa Monica. She was the Pied Piper. After work every night, she'd walk around the office and be like, hey, we're playing Left 4 Dead at 8 if you want to get in or whatever.
Gather everybody to come into the game lab and play.
I miss that, man. That's the type of stuff that I miss about working in an office and having to work by myself. Just the camaraderie of being.
I miss it, but also like I miss yeah, it wouldn't be the same without the same people.
Oh, of course.
Everybody grew up and moved on, you know.
But you end up meeting new people at it's just like I moved to Game Trailers and I ended up making a whole new set of awesome friends there. That's just kind of how it works. So
sure, but all those people are now old and
they are
doing their own thing too.
Yeah. So I need to get another job where I work around people to meet even more friends.
You need to make some 20-year-old friends.
I don't know if that would work at this point, Matt. I can't sell it like I used to, unfortunately. So anyway, get back to Back for Blood.
Yeah, it's so I mean I think it's going to rate well. I think it's going to deliver on what they're trying to do with it and what they're trying to
Well, they put out a huge chunk of gameplay and it looks flipping awesome.
Trying to evoke the nostalgia for the Left 4 Dead games, but they're also pushing it forward in new ways. Like I don't want to necessarily play it because I've done my time in the 4-player co-op zombie trenches, but there's nothing about this game that doesn't look great as to what they're trying to do.
My big concern is is there any single player element to it at all? And if there isn't, will it hurt it?
Probably not. Like I think no single player might actually be better than some single player.
That maybe you could be right about that. Actually,
single player can ding the score more than no single.
That's
player.
That's actually a really good point. You're right.
But this seems to be slated to be coming out somewhere in mid-year, like it looks like a summer release sort of thing.
And I mean, look, World War Z ended up at like a 7 or something like that. So I mean, if you're looking at the genre and the comps, like this to me looks like it should do far better than that.
And on top of that, it's not like it really has any competition.
No.
So
yeah, I mean that's why it exists, because there was no competition for Left 4 Dead still. Like the last year, we've got stuff like World War Z.
Yeah, people have made, but nothing. No one's ever made anything that matches what Left 4 Dead was.
Big budget. Yeah, I mean
also just the polish and the verve. There's something about Left 4 Dead that none of those imitators have ever had.
Agreed.
And if anyone's going to capture that again, it's the people that made Left 4 Dead.
Yeah. So, and I will say this:
looks like they're doing it.
Yeah. For real. I did like World War Z, and you can probably find that game for either free on whatever
cheap
service you're on, or just really cheap. And if you don't want to spend the full money on Back for Blood, it's a pretty good alternative.
Or if you just want something to play that's like it while you're waiting.
Yeah, to warm up for Back for Blood. This game also guaranteed to come out this year. Guaranteed. It has a hard release date, early in the year. It's about as safe as it can get. Supermaster Gamer, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. I appreciate it. Okay, it's time for my next pick. And this is where I really started reaching. Matt, I'm curious to see if you think this next pick of mine is one of the games that you don't think may make it.
Oh, it certainly is.
It is? Okay. My next pick is Dying Light 2. And I'm on the fence on whether this is dicey or not, to be honest with you, because the game was supposed to come out last year and it was delayed. It was delayed because of COVID. So because they keep losing department heads.
Yeah. Like, there's something going on with this thing.
Or just at the studio in general.
Yeah. Like if this thing does come out and it looks like they've got something special on their at least judging by that last E3 demo, who knows what's happened in the year and a half since then. But what they're trying to make is really cool.
Yeah, I saw it at E3. It blew my mind. And it reminded me nothing of the first one, which I was not a huge fan of. I know a lot of people really got into it, and some people spent literally like hundreds of hours playing it.
I played the first game for like 100 hours. And
a lot of people did.
Don't even fully know why. Like
it never clicked with me.
I didn't like it early on, and then as soon as I got the grappling hook, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like, and I didn't get the grappling hook for like 6-7 hours. Like, it was definitely. I got the grappling hook and really clicked with the game long after it was reasonable to give up.
No.
So like when you say you just you didn't get into it and you walked away, like I totally understand what you're talking about, because I should have, and I just kept going back for some reason, and at some point it just worked and I played it for like another 80 hours. I never even finished it.
A lot of people are like that,
man. Fucking city.
It became a huge game. They ended up selling like 13 million copies of the first game.
They just put out more DLC for it.
I know. They haven't given up. They keep supporting it. So again, that's another reason why I do think it's coming out this year. They're still putting out DLC for the first game. I do not think that they would do that if at the detriment of their new project. I also talked to the studio when I saw the game at E3 2019. They were already telling me that it was like pretty much complete, and they were like wrapping up bugs and finalizing some of the content. So I feel pretty confident it's coming out this year. Again, it was supposed to be released last year. So it might get dicey. We may get into August or September, and where I'm still sitting here like twiddling my thumbs, being like, okay, I need to hear something about now. But then when E3 happens in September, as Pactor has predicted, I think that's when we'll get maybe the final release date stuff. But
here's my bold counterpoint. Non-zero chance this game gets canceled.
You think it could be canceled? That's what you're saying.
Like we will never see Dying Light 2.
I would be surprised. I mean, dude, this game looks so good. Like 2 years ago.
But something is up.
I agree.
Losing people.
There's something weird going on there. It could be another CD Projekt Red culture. You're right.
Oh yeah, Jason Schreier is going to have an article about this motherfucker. I assure you.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But if it does come out this year, it is a great pick. I think it's going to be a big deal.
Again, at this point, I was just like, what do I think is going to come out this year that'll get higher than an 8? Like the first Dying Light, by the way, Matt, only has like a 76 aggregate score.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but what they're doing at Dying Light 2, like there's innovation here, there's ideas. Like I think it's going to be different.
Can you think of many games that got that Metacritic score that sold 13 million copies? Not a lot.
Not too many. Certainly nothing with legs like that thing had. Like it's just
crazy.
Yeah.
But when you're a small studio and 13 million people buy your game, you shift gears a little bit. You're like, okay, we have a bunch of new fans. We got to keep them happy. So
and meanwhile, your main competition is making Dead Island 2,
right? And
not managing to get that done.
And that game is a disaster and probably will be canceled someday.
Because this is the team that made Dead Island 1.
Yep.
And then moved on. Because Dying Light is basically Dead Island 2.
Right.
In a very
competent studio,
yeah. But the people basically, and for the story that I heard goes that basically they wanted to make Dying Light. That was their idea for Dead Island 2, and the publisher was like, no, just do Dead Island again. Like we don't like innovate or do anything different. Just make it again and sell the same thing. And they didn't want to do that, so they went up and made it. And I think they made the right choice.
Yeah,
in the
they
end.
absolutely did.
To have worked out pretty
provided this game doesn't get canceled, I guess.
Meanwhile, Dead Island 2 is on its third redo.
Yeah,
still no sign of anything.
Still watching that same trailer from the Venice Boardwalk. We've seen 100 times.
I appreciate there's the wild swings of this, Monster Hunter. Oh, realistic, God of War creates a boy. Like, what are you doing? Back to Bravely Default, super safe. We got a hard release or Dying Light 2. Who fucking knows where that game is? It's just like up and down, up and down, up and down. This
has been a schizophrenic draft for me, to say the least. I would do something and then try to counter it. Do something and then try to counter it. Again, I just really struggled to, as I got to like the 4th or 5th pick, to find games I knew were coming out this year that were going to score decently. I just did. And I was like, I started diving into the pile of indie stuff and I'm like, I don't know anything about this. All I know is the studio that made it. And then in some of those cases, that studio, the new game was like a brand new genre. And I was like, or it wasn't a sequel. And I was like, well, do I know if the studio can work on a new genre and make it great? I don't know. So it just got I got all twisted up mentally doing this draft. Again, the most difficult one that I've done.
Yeah, I think God of War and Dying Light are your two. You're going to get your alternates in those slots. I'm pretty well. I think Dying Light has a better chance than God of War. Actually, minor. Like I'll give Dying Light a 5 to 10% chance of coming out this year.
Really?
I would
5
like
to 10. Wow.
I don't think it's happening. I would like it to, because I'm very curious about this thing. It's written by Chris Avellone, who's written some of my favorite things ever. The branching story stuff is fascinating to me.
Like legit branching stories.
Like legit. Like you cannot see the whole game in one playthrough. Things
or even two.
Yeah.
Yep. So Jam Rain, thanks for all the subs, man. As always, you rock. Making it.
We'd love to see it. I don't think we will.
Okay.
Hell, I just love to see some footage of it.
Of what? Of Dying Light 2?
Yeah, we haven't seen anything new from it in a long time.
Yeah, it was E3, that big demo that they released.
We have had more so-and-so head of whatever has left the studio more than we've seen new preview footage.
It's a reckoning, dude. People aren't putting up with the old BS anymore that was going on in the games industry. And some of these people that refuse to evolve, they're going to become extinct. Let's just be honest. That's how it works. Progress or die. So anyway, that's my pick. It might be a little dicey. I definitely don't think it's as dicey as Matt does. The fact that it was scheduled for release last year puts my mind at ease. Because at least in their mind, it was nearly finished. So it could be canceled because the whole team falls apart. I think that's unlikely after all the money they put into it. Next up, Matt, your pick.
My pick is this is the safest pick Not
it doesn't get any safer than this one.
In terms of coming out this year, this is my safest pick, and it is Hitman 3.
Yep.
And to be clear, we made these picks before the review embargo.
Yeah, we did the draft last night. And
I still didn't know what this thing was going to get. Now, to be fair, this morning I looked and I was like, what the fuck? I did not think Hitman was going to. I mean, it's early. We haven't seen all the reviews, but it's scoring better than I thought it would.
Well, I did know that the embargo was breaking today for the game because I reached out to them and asked for code, and they're like, "We can't give it to you."
Yeah. I mean, I figured the embargo was today or tomorrow.
Which was, I'll be honest with you, that's why I did not pick it earlier. Because I was afraid, honestly, that there was maybe a review out there already that I just hadn't seen. Maybe they gave IGN the midnight, whatever, embargo. I didn't know. And I knew the reviews were coming out today. So I intentionally stayed away.
I looked on SIFTD and it wasn't there, so I figured nothing had come out yet.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't even looking at SIFTD. I was literally completely engrossed in this draft. It took over everything that I had. So I wasn't paying attention. But anyway, totally legal, totally legit that Matt picked Hitman 3. And the reviews came out today, and they're way higher than I thought they would be.
Yeah, I did not. I mean, I was thinking, like, oh, it's a solid 8, right?
Yeah.
But it's up. I mean, we'll see how it lasts.
Yeah. Because it has to last till the end of the year.
Yeah. And also, it has to last to the end of the week. Like, a lot of people did not get early code on this thing. So people are going to be getting their reviews up as we move forward after it goes live tonight. So.
And to get that score at that position, that's huge. Like I said, I'm begging for like an 8 through the rest of this draft. So to see it score where it's at already, and it probably will come down maybe a 10th or 2 before it's all said and done, still win. Huge win.
I think it'll stay in the 8s, I'm pretty sure.
And as we said in Game Face 243, we'll be talking about Hitman 3 in next Tuesday's episode of Game Face. Unfortunately, as I just said, we did not get review code for that one. Okay, it's my turn for my next pick. And this one, I don't know. Maybe this one's dicey too, Matt. It isn't. It has a hard release date already.
I think this is fine.
Yep.
I think you're risking the score more than the release date on this one.
Yeah. Again, looking for that 8. My next pick is Deathloop. Deathloop is coming from Arcane Leon. If you read like all the coverage of this game, they just say Arcane and they're like, oh, the guys that made Dishonored and Dishonored. No, it's not the same team.
Different team.
It's a different team. Now I do believe that if Arcane is going to put its name on a studio, that it's going to have some kind of oversight and probably is going to assist in development at certain points. So I do have an expectation of a certain level of competency and quality from this game.
Yeah.
But really, what really sold me on it more than anything is the concept. I mean, you're playing as a group of assassins that are kind of trapped in Groundhog Day. You're racing these other assassins to complete contracts. And it's something unique. It could go terribly wrong and be terrible, or it could be one of those games that people will remember 2021 for because it did something completely different. So between those two things, Arcane does give me a little bit of comfort. The new concept I thought was cool. I think it might get around an 8, and I know it's coming out. Its release date, I think, is in March as well. So the chances of it getting delayed out of 2021 are very slim to none.
It's already delayed out of 2020.
Right. So. Yeah. So it has a hard date. That to me makes a big difference than just saying early or late or a quarter or whatever. Once you do that, a lot of marketing deals lock into place and you're kind of locked in. So do I think this game is going to get anywhere near a 9? Hell no, I do not. But I do think it has a pretty good chance to be a 7.5 to like an 8.1 or an 8.2. And at this point in the draft, like that's just really what I'm looking for. And I found it in Deathloop. So also probably one of Bethesda's last multi-platform games before it gets fully assimilated into the Microsoft Borg. So a little bit of a milestone as well in that regard, but that had nothing to do with why I picked it for sure. But it does look interesting. It is a unique concept. The pedigree is there. Bethesda is there. Although, like with CD Projekt Red, after Fallout 76, I don't have as much confidence in Bethesda as I used to either. So it's dicey.
I'm not going to pin their problems on Arcane.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But it is a dicey pick a little bit. Not as far as whether I'll get a 0, but I mean, I could get like a 6 out of this. I wouldn't be surprised.
It is a little, I mean, the only concern I'd have in that regard, I mean, obviously it could turn out to be bad, but like the other thing is like, the thing I've noticed about this game is it's very hard to explain what it is quickly. Yeah. You know, it's a hard elevator pitch.
Yep.
And in the same way that Tenet is, I guess. And My concern would be that it would be a high skill ceiling game.
It's possible.
Sometimes those don't review very well because reviewers don't have time or the energy to like kind of get good at them and really figure out how they tick, and they end up feeling that like they missed the point and they don't get it, so they kind of give it a lower score as a result. I'd be worried about like that effect, like the effect of like, it's a really good game, but like the reviewers don't really get a chance to give it a fair shake, so it becomes like a lower score than it should get, kind of thing.
My big fear about it is that people dock it because you're doing the same thing over and over again. It's like if you have to keep replaying the same mission over and over again, trying to perfect it to beat the other assassins to the target, some people aren't going to like that. So
I mean, that's true, but at the same time, if that's your problem with the game, then don't talk to me about Fortnite.
Yeah, or any shooter for that matter.
Any
multiplayer shooter. Yeah, that's a good point. So anyway, I'm not crazy excited by having Deathloop there, but I wasn't crazy excited about pretty much any of the rest of my picks in this draft. So
that's how I feel about having to play
it. All right, Matt.
I'm crazy excited about having that there. I'm looking at my hard drive now.
All right, Matt. What's your next pick?
My next pick is new Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, just got a second trailer this week that looked pretty good.
Guaranteed release.
Yep. Got a release date as well.
Probably going to get, and this time I am leaning on those 20-something game reviewers because they love the Pokemon.
They also have this weird affinity for Pokemon Snap, even though some of them may have never played it when it came out.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure.
How old is Pokemon Snap now?
Pokemon Snap's like from like 1997.
Yeah, so it's 23 years old.
It's like 99, 2000, because obviously
it's over 20 years old.
Yeah, but they were kids when there's a lot of there's a lot of kids that age that played a lot of N64 stuff because their parents handed down the N64 to them.
Yeah.
Pokemon Snap's a very accessible game for that age bracket. So I think it's been in demand for a long time. People are very excited it's coming back. I'm excited it's coming back. I like Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, I want to play it. Yeah, I'm pumped for it.
Looks pretty good. It looks like more robust than like the 4 theme park rides that the first game was.
Yep.
And people love Switch content. People love Pokemans, and I think it's going to get at least like an 8.
How many Nintendo first party games for Switch can you remember getting less than an 8?
Not too many.
I don't know if I can think of any. Yeah. So pretty safe bet there.
I think Mario Tennis didn't do that well. The Switch Tennis, Mario Tennis.
It may have got just below an 8, actually. It was
kind of funky, as I recall.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it has some issues at launch that I think have since been rectified, but I think you're right. It may have scored below an 8. But typically, any Nintendo first-party game,
pretty safe.
You can pretty much count on it getting an 8 or higher.
But part of the problem was that there's not a lot of guaranteed Nintendo releases. We don't know.
I know. I searched for that too. I was like, first-party Nintendo Switch games 2021, and this was like the only thing.
Mario Tennis Aces is a 75.
Okay. Yeah. So just below an 8, but still the worst was a 7.5.
Yeah, I mean, that's up there.
I think you're pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a fine pick here, especially. But I did look at it and I decided not to because I am not a big fan of the first Pokemon Snap. I think it's one of those games that's like had built a culture around it or like a fan following around it because it was so weird. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was a unique concept, and it's still a unique concept 20 years later, which is kind of crazy. I don't know if that means that like people were afraid to emulate it or they didn't think it was worth emulating, but regardless, we don't get games like this ever. So
both on that one, maybe.
Yeah, it might be.
Also, there's just there's a hunger for it. Like again, like
the thirst is real.
Like you say, it's not about what we think we're going to like. It's about what we think.
Yep.
Jesus, even Snipper Clips got an 84. Like what?
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay, that is a little off, but anyway. But yeah, it's coming soon. I think it's March as well.
Yeah, April is spring sometime. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not even like its release date is later in the year. It's coming up pretty soon here. So I'm looking forward to playing it. I'm excited to play it. I think that's a good pick there. Next up for me, another pick that I made where I sent Matt a special message whenever I made the pick. And this message said, "Screw it, Halo Infinite." This is a game that I'm a little nervous about not making it out this year. In fact, I'm more nervous about this game than Dying Light 2. I'll be honest with you.
This game's coming out.
Because this game also has been a disaster. It lost its 2 lead developers. It got railed when they showed the first gameplay from it. Like, I feel like they may be nervous to show the game again. I also fear that it may be a case where at the end of the season, we have a problem, Matt, because maybe they've only released the campaign or they
because it sounds like they're doing it sort of piecemeal.
They are.
Even with the original plan.
And how does that work then? Like at the end of the year, maybe we should decide that now and we should let chat chime in. Like if they only release the campaign or they only release the multiplayer, does that count for my team? I
think whatever it kind of depends how Metacritic rolls, I guess, but whatever it's rated as when the cutoff happens in December, I think count it.
So you're saying if I search for Halo Infinite on Metacritic and it comes up with a result and there's a score, that you're okay with me using the score?
I think so. I mean, if people feel okay putting a review score on it, then I think it's fair to say that it has been reviewed and that's its Metacritic score by that point in time.
It seems like chat is okay with that as well.
Yeah. Also, you're not going to have any alternates left. so you should probably keep this one.
We'll see.
In case you can't tell, I'm not particularly threatened by this game's potential review scores.
Well, again, I do think ultimately they'll get it together, and I think it will score a 7, 8-ish. Yeah, that's all I was looking for here. If they actually really turn it around and it gets like a 9 or something, then hallelujah.
But I do think it'll come out this year in some form.
I'm 75% confident it's coming out this year.
Yeah,
that's where I'd put it. And I got it way down. Like, it's kind of crazy to think I got Halo Infinite that late, but that's where we're at.
That's where we're at with Halo.
That's where we're at.
I probably wouldn't have picked it at all.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think it's going to rate very well, and I don't even necessarily think that's because it's going to be bad. I think I think there's going to be an element of like, haha, we're finally get to stick it to Halo kind of thing. I think there's going to be a little bit of like, people have such a. I am certainly not excited to play it. So like going into that game, a review of that game, feeling like, oh god, here we go with this thing. What do you got for me, Gary? Or whatever they call that, the brute with the weird face. Is his name Gary?
I don't know. You mean
I don't remember the meme. I don't know. Like, it could turn it completely around. I have no idea what they're doing internally, but I just have visions of 7.2s.
Well, look, even Halo 4 ended up around there, so. I'm hoping this is better. We'll see.
Oh God, please be better than Halo 4.
It would be hard not to be. So
yeah.
If I get a 7.5 from Halo Infinite, I'll be cool with that. So we'll see.
Yeah, God, how did we get to the point that we're saying that about a Halo game? Like, it's so sad.
Well, I know how we got that way. Bungie quit working on the product. That's exactly how, and they had to start a brand new studio from scratch to create it. So
a shame.
It is a shame for sure. Halo used to be one of my most anticipated games every time it came out. Up until 4, because I loved 3.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to give him a chance.
Yeah, I 3, and I liked ODST even more.
Yeah. But that was that. It's funny. Studios matter. People matter. That's what what really matters are the people who make these games. It's not about the IP or a character model or even really how good it looks. It's about the people who make the games.
Yep. And the people who made that game feel good apparently went to Destiny. Because that's the game that feels good now. Yeah,
it's true. As far as how it feels to play.
That moment-to-moment gameplay.
Yep. They nail it. Okay, your next pick.
My next pick is kind of now you can tell we're hitting sort of the hell with it. Why not? I picked Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
It was on my list, Matt. I had it. I would have picked it. I would have picked it in my next couple picks.
Yeah, it's supposed to be out in April, as I recall. And I think things gonna be good. It's gonna be their kind of like swan song. I mean, it was gonna be their swan song for Star Wars. Now there's obviously gonna be more Star Wars Lego content coming because Star Wars is big again, off of the back of the Disney Plus stuff. But I mean, I have a hard time believing this is going to be received anything but warmly, even with the consternation people have over the sequel trilogy. It's going to be about Lego stuff and funny Lego stuff and this John Williams music and the bonus stuff and unlocking things and jumping around co-op Lego, and it's going to be great. And I think it'll get at least a 7. So here we are. Might surprise everyone, get like 8s or something. Like, I think this could. It could ride the new boom of Star Wars love that's flying around out there, and It almost might be good for it that it got delayed, because like Star Wars was kind of a dead thing last year. No one wanted to talk about Star Wars last year because Rise of Skywalker demoralized everybody so much. But now everybody's kind of happy with Star Wars again, so maybe it'd be fun to revisit all that.
I can only think of a couple Lego games that scored less than a 6.
Yeah, I mean it's no Ninjago.
Yeah, I mean, there's right, and that's one of them. And there's like one other one, like it was a small property, and those were the one. Star Wars, dude, they're gonna go all. It may be the highest scored Lego game ever when it's all said and done.
That's also, the other thing is like it's been forever since
they've worked on it forever, Matt. Yeah, we talked about that a couple weeks ago on Game Face, or I think right before the break. We were like,
no, it's last week.
Was it last week? Yeah, we're like, wait, TT games, like they don't take this long. So man, if they're taking this long, they are giving it some TLC. I think that's a good pick. Like I said,
because we were talking about the Lego games of some IP that had just changed hands.
Yeah.
And they can still make Marvel stuff. That was last week. But yeah, I think they've certainly taken their time on this one. So I feel like it's going to be nice and polished and looking good. And I'm excited. I want to play a Star Wars Lego game again. It's been a long time.
I haven't played a Lego game in a long time, but I will play this one. Absolutely.
I don't remember the last one I played.
Yep. So there you go. Matt's pick, Lego Star Wars, The Skywalker Saga. And my next pick, and again, I just felt like I was just getting desperate here with my last few picks in this draft. I was just felt
this
like
was on my list. This was on there.
Okay. My pick is Returnal, and I am very nervous about this game. Mostly I'm nervous because it's an example of what I was talking about earlier, where you have this studio that you have a lot of reverence for, and in this case, it's Housemarque. And if you've watched Game Face for any amount of time, you know both Matt and I are huge Housemarque fans. And I think a lot of people on SIFTD are too. I think generally people really like their games. But this is a complete departure for Housemarque. It announced a couple years ago that it was going to go away from its side-scrolling shooter voxel-based games, and it was going to make something a little more traditional and kind of shoot for the sky a little bit and make something a little bit more big budget. And that's what this is. It also, and Matt, this is kind of a theme for 2021. It's also kind of a Groundhog Day type game. You play as this person who crash lands on an alien planet, and you wake up and you have to survive, and then you die and you get reincarnated and you go back at it again. And just like I said earlier, I don't know how critics are going to react to this, because it could be a case where, wait, I'm doing the same thing over and over and I get sick of this. I know that I did not keep playing the Demon's Souls remake for PS5 because of that, because I was just doing the same thing over and over. It's about perfecting your runs.
But on the flip side, Hades.
True. Exactly.
If you do it right,
can be done right.
It's great.
Yep, you're right. It can be done right. And so we'll see. I don't know that that's Housemarque's wheelhouse.
We'll see. I mean, they're trying to make themselves a new wheelhouse. Clearly.
They are. Yeah.
And at least in the most recent stuff we've seen of this game, you can see the Housemarque trademark. Some of the bosses are shooting out those voxel bullets.
Yep.
In 3D, for the first time.
There's voxels in it.
You can see it.
A lot of the particle effects are voxels. They're not actually particles.
And they're the classic Housemarque sort of white and red.
Yeah.
Voxels even. The pedigree is on display in places.
I'll say this. I am really rooting for this game. And
I'm super curious.
I generally do not root for any game. I just root for them to be good because I love to play great video games. But I want to see this game do well financially, because Housemarque, to me, it feels like they're right on the fringe of dissolving. They have not had a hit for a really long time. They need this game to do well. I hope it does do well, but most importantly, I hope it reviews well so I win our frickin' fantasy league. So there you go. That's Returnal. Also has a solid release date, definitely coming out this year. I'm not worried about that at all. And again, another one of those games that I picked as to make up for some of my riskier picks earlier on in the draft. Next up, Matt, your next pick is, to me, your diciest pick in the draft, and it is
Hellblade 2.
Yep.
So this one, this is my other one that's, with the Horizon. The H games have a pretty good chance of not coming out. So this might slip. I acknowledge that. Originally, it announced it for launch window. We'll see if that even holds or what launch window even means. But I threw this one in because I still have another alternate left in case it drops out. And if it does come out this year, I think this thing's going to review through the roof. So it's sort of my God of War equivalent pick.
And this is, by the way, this is Matt's last pick, his last official pick. That's his 10th pick in the draft. All he has left at this point are alternates. Matt, I just really struggle to think it's coming out this year. Xbox put out that press release like the day after Sony leaked all those release dates in its CES video. The next day, Microsoft issues a press release with, well, here are our release dates for 2021. Hellblade 2 was not on there. So I don't know. I know it was
God of War wasn't on the Sony's little fine print thing either, which they removed later.
They did remove later.
Clearly that was real.
Exactly. You don't remove it if it's fake. You only remove it if it's real. Yeah, you're right. Your God of War was not on that. And that does point to it not making it out this year. The other thing with Hellblade 2 is I think it was late last year they announced that it was moved to Unreal Engine, which could have, set things back a little bit. It's due time-wise, mostly, when you look at when the first Hellblade was released. But remember, the first Hellblade was what they were calling a AAA indie. It was an independent game, but they spent the same amount of time on the different elements of the game as they would on a big budget game. And now Ninja Theory is obviously owned by Microsoft, and this is their next project. And I'm very excited by it, and I think this could be a league winner if it comes out. If you get that in the 10th slot, the first Hellblade had an 8.7. And that to me is bloated. Like, I don't think the first Hellblade was an 8.7. I think it got a psychology boost because it was a game that focused on mental health and looked at things a little differently from most games. I don't think the game itself deserved like an 8.7 ultimately. But maybe the sequel will be worthy of that. And if the first one, with all its flaws, got that kind of a score, God knows what this could get. So if you get like a 9 in your 10 hole, that's a league winner. I know.
Maybe. And look, the actress who plays Senua like put up a tweet in full makeup the other day, like teasing it. Like, it's if they're not coming out this year, it's awful early. We doing that. So we'll see. Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously in the mocap studio right now or whatever. So
anything can happen.
Yeah. Well, that is one thing we have learned for sure.
This is my, this is the one I'm, if I lose this one out, I've got 2 safe alternates.
Yep.
So I'm not too worried about it. But like you say, it could be a death blow if it does make it.
Oh, if it makes it, that'll kill me, guaranteed. And here's my last pick in the draft. And again, after this, we have 2 more alternates, so don't leave. My last pick in the draft is Solar Ash. Solar Ash is not a sequel to Hyper Light Drifter, but it is made by the same team. It's the next game from the team that made Hyper Light Drifter. Hyper Light Drifter, by the way, is the most viewed indie game in SIFTD history. And, well, let me just say this. With 95% certainty, I believe that. I have not looked at every indie game. I looked at all the biggest indie games as far as traffic are concerned. Hyper Light Drifter is the top as far as likes, views, all of it, comments, all that stuff. It is the biggest indie game on the site. I know there are tons of people on SIFTD that are huge fans of Hyper Light Drifter. This studio... did you play Hyper Light Drifter?
Yeah.
Matt? You did.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah. To me, it's almost a little bit kind of like the first Hades. It's not so much like you're repeating the same thing over and over again, but it gives me kind of the same vibes as far as the combat is concerned. Solar Ash looks like something almost entirely different. It has the same art style, and it looks like it's set in the same world, and even the character model looks like it's set in the same world. So I would not be.
I think it is. I think it is in the same universe.
Same universe. And if it's not announced, I would not be surprised if at the end of this game somehow there are 2 games tied together. But mechanically, Hyper Light Drifter, amazing. Design-wise, amazing. Aesthetically, amazing. Those are things that are not going to go away in any new game that this studio makes. So I also think the pedigree is there. I think a lot of journalists love Hyper Light Drifter.
It is set in the same universe.
It is. Okay. Then I would not be surprised.
Not a direct sequel.
Okay. I would not be surprised if those things cross over at some point in this game. But just watching the game, you can see it does have differences, and you can see why it's not Hyper Light Drifter 2. But I'm very confident that this game is going to score pretty well. I am also very confident that it's coming out this year. So for my last game in the draft, after I had made some risky picks, I feel pretty good about this one. But this was me going to the well, Matt. This was me being like, I have to go to the indies now. I cannot find any quote unquote big budget games that I am confident is going to outscore one of the better indies from the year. And so I just started searching through them, and I went and looked at a lot. But this one to me seemed like the safest bet, one, for a high score, and for the fact it's coming out this year. It's been in development for a while. There's tons of trailers.
I think it's pretty well assumed it's June.
Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with that pick in my 10th slot.
Yeah.
Does it make up for some of my other concerns? No, but it did. I do know now that I'm not going to have to swap that one out for one of my two alternates. And that's where we're at this point. So now Matt and I choose two alternates, and these are games that if one of our 10 games, or two of our 10 games, in my case maybe, were to not be released this year, these alternates go in, and they go in order. So Matt and I can't choose. Like, Matt can't say, oh, Ratchet and Clank ended up being delayed. I want to use my second alternate to replace Ratchet and Clank. That's not how it works. He has to take his first alternate to fill that. And then if a second game drops out, then that second alternate would fill in that gap. So with that in mind, Matt, what was your first alternate? And also, by the way, we tend to play these really safe because these are the games that are filling in for mistakes that we made. So what's your pick, Matt?
My first alternate is Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
Gotham
I almost picked this like for inside my top 10. So,
well, here's the thing. I feel like if I had to bet of all my picks what the lowest scoring game will be, it's this one. I would not be surprised. I feel like Gotham Knights could disappoint hard.
It could be like a 6 type game like Deathloop. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I think it's a pretty good chance it's at least going to be in the mid 7s.
And it's your alternate. So
it's definitely coming out. So
is it?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about that. It has no release date at all other than 2021.
I'm pretty sure it's June. There's some stuff.
I researched it yesterday, and nobody knows.
Because there's some stuff hidden in the most recent stuff they put up that basically it's there's like circus posters, which is a reference to Nightwing, to Dick Grayson's parents being killed. But it very clearly points out June it was June or July is like a date. There's a date in there, and it's like June something or whatever. So
it is announced for 2021. When they showed the game the first time, they said it was coming out.
So I'm pretty sure this game's coming out this summer. June or July.
2-player co-op.
Yep, 2-player co-op. I mean,
whole campaign you can play 2-player co-op.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it looks very good.
Oh, I agree with you, Matt. I mean, I don't know that it doesn't look very good.
I'm not saying it's gonna be a bad game, but it's not what I want. You know what I mean?
I mean, look, I trust the studio. I think you probably do too. I mean, they did a good job when they worked on the prior Batman game. Would I prefer it's Rocksteady? Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it, and I liked Mordor and all. Yeah,
they've done good stuff. The studio's got it. Yeah,
nothing against them. I don't know. Something about how it looks doesn't look quite right.
I didn't get excited watching the demo.
Yeah.
That's really my take on it. I watched the demo. I was like, okay.
It's weird because it's I like the studio. I like the idea. I like all the characters they're using. And I don't know. I get Avengers vibes from it.
Yep. Okay. My first alternate is.
It's better than a 0.
That's true. And I mean, look, I am just going for guaranteed games coming out with my alternates because I took my shots already, Matt. Right. This is me covering my ass with my alternates. My first alternate is The Medium, a game that literally comes out in 2 weeks. It is not being delayed. There have already been huge hands-on previews for the game, which I also would add have not been glowing. I do not expect this game to get a really high score. It is made by Bloober Team, which I will say I generally like their stuff a good bit. Their games are very atmospheric, very spooky.
They're definitely one of the out of nowhere rising star developers right now.
I think this game is their bridge to big budget games. Definitely. It's like a B level game. They have more budget.
This is the game that will make their name, I think.
Yeah, I hope.
If it's good.
Yeah. It is an alternate. I expect it to probably score around a 7. It does have a very unique concept. You basically play the game in 2 realities at once, thus the name The Medium. And other games haven't really done that yet to the extent that this game is doing it. So it does have a chance to score okay based upon its innovation and if they can execute on it. My fear is that this game ends up being like 4.5 hours long or something like that.
That's a valid concern.
Because studios like this, when they try to make something that's big budget, they get to a point where they're like, well, we don't have the budget to do big budget, so let's just make the game like a quarter as long as it should be. And I wouldn't be surprised if they follow it up with DLC eventually. Bloober Team is pretty good about stuff like that. But again, it's my alternate. It's coming out in 3 weeks. I'm just playing it safe with a cool concept that may or may not review pretty well. So my first alternate is The Medium. And here we go with our last 2 picks of the 2021 SIFTD Video Game Fantasy League Draft. Matt, what is your final alternate?
My final alternate is my old standby, NBA 2K22.
I knew it was coming. I was like, I know what his last pick's going to be, and there it was.
Yep. And the reason this is so far down is this series does not get the numbers it once did.
Yeah.
In part because of the microtransaction fuckery, and because of I'm worried a little about this one because we've talked in the past about the first next gen installment of a sports game tends to be kind of stripped down.
That's why I stayed away from them. Yeah,
but the visuals,
it's gorgeous. I know. I may get it an 8 all. I'm not even kidding, man. Like, they look that flipping good. And the other thing too is that they've already got like a next gen version up and running. They released it this year. So
2K21 kind of handled the first game of the gen jitters, I think. Yep.
And I'm more worried about Madden and FIFA as far as features than I am about NBA 2K. Because let's be honest, the Madden and FIFA stuff for this year was like bad. Like I played like the PS5 upgrade for Madden, and I was like, I can't tell the difference from playing it on my PS4 Pro. NBA 2K, oh yeah, you can see the difference immediately. So if you're going to pick a sports game, I think that's the best one. The other one I maybe would have picked is MLB. But as Vincent brought up at the end of Game Face 243, like that game is ghosted. Like nobody knows where MLB is. So I was like, I can't do it. I went and looked at like the scores for FIFA 21, Madden 21, all of them. And I just couldn't pull the trigger on a sports game. I just couldn't. After the only one I would have picked is NBA 2K, and you took it before me, and that was that. So I think that's a great pick for your last alternate. It's coming out guaranteed at least a 7 to 7.5, probably higher, probably a lot higher. So I think you've covered your arse quite well on that one. And then my final pick of the 2021 draft is, and you guys may be surprised by this because you guys know how much I love the developer, It Takes Two. This game, maybe over the last few months, I cannot think of another game that has impressed me more relative to where my expectations were beforehand. And we've known about this game for a while. It is under development by the Oscars guy, Joseph Ferris, who has made some great games. I mean, Brothers is a great game. And even his last game wasn't terrible. It Takes Two, or wait, what was it called again? Where the prison break game,
The Way Out.
Yeah, No Way Out. That's what it was. Yeah, and that wasn't terrible. Matt hated it, but I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it. But It Takes Two looks flipping awesome. Like you play as a husband and wife who are turned basically into like puppets, and they have to mend their relationship via playing through this game.
Another tiny characters in a big world game.
It is, yeah. But they have to mend their relationship with each other to become human again. And I love the concept. I'm sure you're seeing the B-roll right now, even though I can't see it. But it looks like it's going to mix stuff up. But most importantly, it's all about co-op. And that's one thing I do like about Joseph Fares. Like, his studio has developed a brand, and that is you're going to play with somebody else, and you're going to have to cooperate with somebody else. And I like that. I like that concept, and they execute it very well. It really looks to me almost like a cooperative 3D platformer where you just have this insane gameplay variety where you're never doing the same thing for very long. It's what draws me to 3D platformers in general. It's why I love the genre. And so I don't have hopes that this game is going to get like an 8.5 or higher. I do think it's a pretty safe bet to get a 7.5. And also, this game has a set in stone hard release date for the early part of the year. So I played it safe as well. It just, to me, seemed like the most interesting game left that had a pedigree that I knew was coming out. And so I know it's going to make it out this year. And I really, me more than you, I really needed to cover my butt with my alternate. So that's what I did. I took one of It Takes Two for my last pick. So there you go.
I mean, that was on my list. That was on my. The other two major games that were on my list that I didn't get around to picking were Kena.
Is it Kena? Is that how you say it?
I think so. I don't know.
I call it Kenna, but it was also right there.
I don't think it's Kenna. It's either Kena or Kena.
Okay.
But I had that, and I had Cyber Shadow.
Yeah. So that was the other indie that I decided for between Solar Ash, basically.
Yeah.
But I wasn't 100% sure that was coming out either.
No, I have 2021 concerns about Cyber Shadow. There's no solid release date, and it's by one guy. It's being published by the company that did Shovel Knight. But they picked it up as a game by one guy, and sometimes those games can just sort of languish as the one guy tries to finish them. But we'll see. But I have my eye on it for sure. But I wasn't sure.
It's too dicey. I couldn't do it. One guy. I mean, if he gets sick, it gets delayed.
It could be anything. Yeah.
I mean, literally, he breaks his leg, the game gets delayed. If it's one dude, it's like big time risk. So anyway, those are our picks and our two alternates. I know a lot of you guys, as soon as the stream is over, you're going to head over to sifted.net and you're going to put in your picks for the Sifted Fantasy Challenge, which you absolutely should. Everybody should do it. Prizes. For even if you are not a subscriber or a patron, you can get a prize if you win. But I do, before we go, I just want to drop a couple games in your ear. Matt already shared a couple that were kind of on the cusp for him. And I want to share a couple that were kind of on the edge for me as well. And some that you guys may be questioning. And Matt, I think I want your input on this too, because
Cyber Shadow comes out next week.
Oh, it does?
Oh, well.
Oh, well, there you go.
Never mind.
Yep. So here's a couple that I was thinking about that maybe we should help guide people on whether they should pick them or not. Hollow Knight.
Mm-hmm.
That game,
yeah, I mean, it's going to rate well.
But here's the thing. I didn't pick it because I thought it was kind of controversial, because it started as the expansion to the first Hollow Knight, and now they've just kind of named it as if it's a new game. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know if it was going to get weird if I made the pick, and then it would get like I was just like,
it's officially the sequel. It's not any. Basically, maybe it started as that, but they blew it up to a full game, no question.
Okay, so Hollow Knight Silk Song, that's one to keep an eye on when you make your picks at the Fantasy Challenge. What do you think about Babylon's Fall? I think the chances of it making it are too risky.
Yeah, I would not test that one.
Yep. Battlefield 2021. I'm pretty confident a Battlefield is going to come out this year.
Yeah, it sounds likely.
And that game might be one worth keeping an eye on. Bayonetta 3. How do you feel about that, Matt?
I thought about it, but it's one of there's a bunch of Nintendo stuff that I just felt we don't know enough about it. Like, would I like to have Metroid Prime 4 on there? Sure. Do I think that's coming out this year? No. Would I like to have Shin Megami Tensei on there? Yeah. Do I know enough about that?
I was close to picking that.
I don't know.
I will say, because it has been like 5 or 6 years. Like,
it's been longer. We saw that before they even showed the
That's true.
They launched the system.
Yeah.
Like, that was that first Switch game, right?
Molly, yeah, it was. That's why I'm saying, like, it's got to come out. Like, you can't
eventually, but who knows with that?
I mean, how do you make your money back, like, on that stuff?
Like, Shin Megami Tensei is a guaranteed 8 or 9. Like, I think, but I just didn't feel confident enough about what the hell they're doing with it.
Yep.
Like, who knows?
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring is not this year.
Yeah, I don't think it's even like next year, maybe.
No, I don't know what the hell with that game.
I would not pick Elden Ring in your drafts.
They got cursed by George R.R. Martin. I don't know what. And
then the last
will we be playing Elden Ring or reading The Winds of Winter first?
I think we'll play Elden Ring first.
I think that's probably true.
Yep. I hate to say it, but I think that's the facts. And then the last game I wanted to bring up, No More Heroes 3.
Yeah, I would have liked that one, but I just don't know.
I'll just be honest. Like, I try to stay away from Japanese games.
Yeah. Well, also, like, I mean,
because the reporting on them isn't reliable and good.
Well, also, like, even if I did have a guaranteed release date for that one, I don't know what that game's going to get.
Yeah.
Like, that could go either way real wide. That's a wide.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I thought the other games were funny and interesting, but garbage. So I didn't enjoy playing them very much.
Like, I keep having I keep having visions of Deadly Premonition 2, and I'm not saying the No Man's Sky.
No Man's Heroes.
I'm not saying the No More Heroes games are as janky and bad in terms of mechanics as Deadly Premonition was, but there is that element of Deadly Premonition 2 where everyone's like, oh yeah, finally Deadly Premonition 2. Oh,
wait a minute.
This wasn't actually that fun, was it?
Yeah.
Like it was kind of a moment in time, and I kind of feel like No More Heroes was that too.
And I'll be honest, Suda and Grasshopper haven't really done anything for quite a long time that I enjoyed. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's dicey. I would stay away from it if you can. Let's answer a couple questions because a lot of these people are getting ready to do their own drafts offline. And by the way, there are several drafts that happen on SIFTD. If you're interested in getting into a draft like Matt and I just did, just head to the forums or just poke around in the comments. People are fishing for folks to join their leagues. And a lot of the drafts haven't happened yet. So if you're into it, you can find a place to do it. Let's see. Vincent says that they have announced that Shin Megami Tensei 5 is launching this year. So,
all right, believe it when I see it.
Yep. Toast 916X, when's the deadline for us to submit the Fantasy Challenge picks? Well, that's a good question because people should not be able to select Hitman 3 after today. I'm not 100% sure if the site shuts people off, shuts games off for you guys to pick. And if that's not the case, that could be a problem now that I think about it, because we can't let you guys pick Hitman today because you guys already know what the scores are.
Because now we know what it gets.
Yeah. So look, when you go over there, don't pick Hitman 3. Because I'm telling you right now, if you do, we're going to remove it from your team and we're going to make you redo your picks. So just don't even bother picking it. But to answer your question, when is the cutoff? The cutoff is the end of the month. And if other games come out, which they're not, there are no other big games coming out. Although I guess the one is that we were just talking about. So that might be a problem too.
Cyber Chat is a big game, but it's
but some people may pick it. Yeah. And if that's the case, and if some of you guys pick it, we have to take that away from you too and make you redo it. So I would stay away from Hitman and Cyber Shadow if you can. But the bottom line is the
medium.
Yeah. And the medium.
That's
when does that come out?
It's just the 28th.
Yeah. Reviews aren't out for that yet, though. So anyway, it is a little dicey, but I would stay away from those two games in particular. But you have to pick by the end of January. So you have a little bit of time to get it in, but not a lot. What else? Is the draft predetermined or can we do write-ins from Congrim 1? No, it's predetermined. Everything, it's really cool, actually. Lashik did a great job. It's like a crazy drop-down interface where you pick each game. He has loaded the database with every game that's supposed to be coming out this year. You just pick from the drop-down. You can do it very quickly and very easy, and it's actually fun. I really enjoy doing it every year. Let's see if we got one more before we go. How do you feel about the new Gran Turismo as a pick? Pretty good, actually. I actually do. I do feel pretty good about it. I think it's a pretty safe bet it's coming out this year. I also feel like Gran Turismo is one of Sony's franchises where it doesn't matter if other games are also coming out that year. Like you said earlier, like God of War and Horizon close together, maybe not a good idea. They could put Gran Turismo out the week before Horizon and it doesn't matter. They're such different games and different audiences. I'm pretty confident it's coming this year. So if you're in a tight spot, that might not be a bad pick.
If I was feeling more daring this year, I might have put Forza Horizon 5 on mine.
Yeah, actually, that would have been a good pick. That just slipped my mind. I would have absolutely picked it if I had thought of it.
I don't know. I wasn't willing to put down things that we just didn't have any information about.
Yeah, I did it though. Remember the one year I picked it without any announcement of Horizon, and it paid off very well for me. I should have done it again.
And then I did see
Cinetiger saying Hitman 3 not available for selection. That's good.
Good. I did see a couple people asking why we didn't pick Nier Replicant, or at least why I didn't, and because Nier Replicant's a remake.
Yeah,
we can't pick a game we already know is good.
Yeah, no, those are off the board. Yeah,
otherwise I would have picked the 3D Mario World
or the Mass Effect games,
the Mass Effect trilogy, or there's a bunch of remakes coming out. Them it's like, it's going to score real well.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't pick that. You can't. DLC doesn't count. We have certain rules, and we probably should have said that at the beginning of the show. My apologies for that.
The other game I had on my list that I shied away from was Humankind.
Yeah,
which is definitely coming out this year, but I just don't know how it's going to be received. I wasn't sure about the reviews. Because
you got to remember, the other thing, Matt, about this is most people who are doing drafts, they're not doing it with 2 people. They're doing it with 5 or 6 or even 10 people. games disappear real fast. And so that's why I wanted to spend some time after our draft kind of talking you through some of the other picks.
Yeah. Or like if I could do remix, I would definitely have Disco Elysium, the final cut on there too, because that game's going to score through the freaking roof.
Yep. Okay, here's the last question.
A lot of
that last question was from Johnny Hurricane, by the way. Thanks, Johnny. The next one is coming from Kevin Rafa, and he asks, if you could switch a game out, which one would you switch? You first, Matt.
Like for anything?
Yeah. If you could just like get rid of a game that you picked and replace it with something, what would it be?
Like maybe I'd swap like Gotham Knights for like Stray.
Okay.
Or Ghostwire Tokyo, something like that.
I would. My big change would be I'm
pretty happy with my main roster.
Yeah, I think you did a good job, man. My main regret, I think, looking at the whole draft is probably taking Deathloop as high as I did. So I would probably swap that out for something. But anyway, that's it for the SIFTD 2021 video game fantasy draft, the first and the best video game fantasy draft on the internet. Hope all you guys have a great time signing up for the SIFTD Fantasy Challenge. Again, the winner gets 2 free games if they're a patron or a subscriber. If you're not a patron or a subscriber, also, by the way, we are including YouTube subscribers in that as well. If you're not a patron or a subscriber, you have to be registered on SIFTD at least, which means you're a basic user, and you get 1 game. And the people who are patrons or subscribers will get 2 games. So
what if I win?
You get nothing. In fact, we can't. In fact, we should have mentioned this. We cannot win. Matt and I do play alongside you guys just for fun. But if he or I end up first, we do not win. We will let whoever is behind us take the win.
Came pretty close.
And get the prizes. Yeah, you did really well. And I think if I had almost any other game in my hole, I might have won. So we actually both did really well as far as like our average per game we picked or whatever. But wasn't in the cards, and it's good. I want you guys to win. But most importantly, I want it to be fun. By the way, the winner last year won by 2/100ths of a point. And there are tiebreakers in case we end up tied, and they're in the article that pushes to this year's challenge. But anyway, just giving you guys as much rules as I can before you go and make your picks. Good luck, everybody. I will say this. It's most important to make sure all 10 of your games come out this year. I cannot repeat it enough. That's the only way you're going to win the SIFTD Challenge. That's it.
Don't pick
games
games
win with 9 games. Yeah.
Don't just pick your favorite stuff.
And that's what you do see a lot. Like when you start scanning through the picks, so you're like, what are you doing picking that game? Like some people I think just maybe want to just kind of just, sometimes I do this as well. I'll just like create a garbage account kind of and just be like, okay, this is what I would do if I wasn't serious about winning, to kind of see if I had a chance doing it that way.
Like a dream team.
Yeah, yeah. And so I get when some people do that, but your chances of winning are pretty slim to none. So Scorefear, thank you for Twitch Prime. Thanks to everyone for Twitch Prime throughout this whole stream. It did end up being a 3-hour stream right on the nose somehow. We had an hour of Game Face and then 2 hours of draft. And a lot of you guys were giving us Twitch Prime throughout Game Face and throughout this, and I missed it and I apologize. We literally appreciate every single one of you guys. And as an example of how much we appreciate it, I don't know if you guys have seen, but you're now in Impactor Factor. Those who subscribe via Twitch Prime, your names are Impactor Factor. We're going to rework how we got names in for the next batch of shows. We're probably going to do a crawl along the bottom of the screen instead of how we're doing it now. But just, I did that. It's a lot more work for me just to recognize you guys. I just want to thank you guys for doing it. Particularly people on YouTube who don't join our streams and have to like physically jump over to Twitch to do it. I really appreciate them as well. And we wanted to recognize you guys, and that's why we made the big changes to Impactor Factor in that way. But anyway, there's our draft. I had a blast doing it, Matt. It drove me bonkers. I'll be honest with you. I was going crazy last night doing these picks. I don't think my team is very good, but I also am not dumb enough to think that I don't have a chance, because you just never know. Stuff gets delayed like that you never dream would get delayed. It happens to me every year. So maybe this is a year where
nobody could have seen Halo Infinite coming last year.
Yeah, and that burned me in both our league and in the SIFTD Fantasy Challenge. So you just never know. I mean, Cyberpunk almost didn't make it again, and it shouldn't have made it. Let's be honest. It shouldn't have. So I'm not 100% stoked on my team right now, but that could change in the blink of an eye. And the same for you guys. When you draft your teams out there in other leagues, or if you do the Sifted Fantasy Challenge, don't get down. You just never know what could happen. That guy who's in the lead could lose 2 of his games in the blink of an eye, and off you go to a championship. So anyway, on behalf of Matt and Jared, who thank God ran the TriCaster for this. There's no way I could have done it. I appreciate it. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you back here on Twitch next Tuesday and every Tuesday for the rest of 21. Everyone take care, and we'll see you then.